it's a very different era. Politics has always been associated with sleaze and scandal and the goings-on in the corridors of power. But it strikes me that we live in a very different era where once upon a time the Prime Minister used to be the bastion of family values, and now at the helm of our government we've got a man who's never publicly stated how many children he has.
There is so much. We could carry on talking about this all day, I think. I thought I couldn't be shocked in what goes on in the corridors of power, because it's the old saying, you know, power corrupts and it corrupts completely. And I do think that's true. I agree with a lot of what Scarlett has said, but for the fact that actually charismatic leaders are in all walks of life. And in business and in charities, wherever you are, there are rules. And you couldn't behave like you're behaving in Parliament, because there are rules, there are conduct procedures, there are contracts of employment, you can sack someone. None of that redress happens in Parliament. And I think that's one of the problems. We have such weak checks and balances when it comes to terrible behaviour that goes with those who feel entitled and, as Scarlett said, feel as though they're prince and princesses, that where is the redress when they behave like this? It's, oh, you get suspended for 2 days. So what? You know, it is ridiculous. We have to have legislation which actually improves the culture, because the culture is in the gutter. I mean, as you said, 56 MPs, cross-party, being, you know, investigated for sexual misconduct is a shocking example to our country. What does that say to young people? What does that say to other countries? I mean, we are hanging our heads in shame because of our politicians, not because of us as general members of the public, but because of the way our leaders are behaving. And I think things have got to change drastically. And it's not just at the top. I agree with you that we haven't got a great exemplar of family values, but it's more than that, because it's not just him. It's actually across the parties, across different levels, ministers, you know, as you said, there's front ministers sitting on the front bench, there's PPSs, there's backbenchers. This is the whole lot of them who don't seem to have any way of controlling their own urges, their own desires and their own behaviour. It's got to stop.
I mean, you used to work in a city which infamously always had this sort of Wolf of Wall Street-style culture of boozy, long lunches. And my understanding today is actually the world of finance has cleaned up its act a lot and banking's become quite a boring place to work. So what is the magic recipe that Parliament now needs to follow?
I mean, we actually had to. The pressure came from consumers and it came from wanting to attract good people into business. And if you apply that to politics, you know, you've got to clean up your act, because if you want better people in politics, you're going to have to create a better culture. And also, us, the voters, have got to be more vocal. We've got to demand it. And that will happen at the ballot box, but actually it's got to happen every day, which is why I've said to the True and Fair Party, what we need to do is we need to bring in legislation. We have to bring in rules that will create a cultural change, because they're not going to do it themselves. When they're there, they seem to think that it is their right to behave how they wish.
Gina, I love the cut of your jib. Thank you ever so much.